franchisees who jump back in and ask questions as well all the time, don't we? About fees and all that sort of stuff. Yep, cool. So hi everyone, welcome to another hashtag Ask Jim. So very cold night, but it's a really warm room, and we've got a bit of a setup tonight because we had a conference that was booked, so Charles was kind enough to do this bit of a setup on the stage. It's not normally the thing, we normally sit at ground level, but we're up here as well. Now the first thing I just want to talk about first before we get into the questions was the Local Heroes Initiative, about the 2 deserving winners during the week that we surprise called. So maybe you want to mention about that initiative and about how that's continuing to...
Well, yeah, this is this area we look for deserving people in the community as promoted by others. And there were 2 lovely ladies I spoke to. We actually rang them. I spoke to them on the phone. One of them was a lady who's got a really big problem. She's got like 3 sick people in the house. She's doing it very, very hard. And she was absolutely blown away by having all these services, $10,000 worth of services, which was great.
Crying, very emotional on the phone.
Yeah, she was actually like crying on the phone. And the other one was even more amazing. This is a lady who just spends all her time in helping other people. And you know what she said? No question, all of this $10,000 is going to, so she can help more people, not one little bit for herself. She was quite clear on that, which is amazing. So there's some great people out there. People you just don't hear about them. So Local Heroes is fantastic. It's just a new initiative, and I'm wrapped in it. We want to do lots more.
Oh, do you want to talk about now the extension office? So what do we decided to do moving forward with it?
Well, rather than doing 1 or 2 big prizes of $10,000, we're going to do smaller prizes, $2,000 each, just to give people some recognition, some public recognition.
So every week it's going to go. What you can do basically is go to our website. You can nominate someone. You can nominate yourself as well. Tell us a bit about yourself. It's going to be over Australia. That every week we're going to choose someone. I'm going to give them $2,000 worth of gym services.
Yeah, somebody who's especially deserving, somebody who's done a lot for the community. There's so many great people in this country. It's just like these gongs for politicians. I mean, what do people like Daniel Andrews really done for anybody but themselves? I mean, seriously.
Did anyone see Jim on Channel 7 last night?
Yeah. Peter Costello had it right. He said that these awards should go to really deserving Australians who are helping others, not for career politicians.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
So Gyms.net Local Heroes, you can nominate anyone as well. We're going to change it up because it's $2,000 a week now moving forward. But for $2,000 a week, let's say $2K, what could someone get for $2K's worth of gym services?
Well, you know, it costs you what, $70 to mow a lawn. I don't know exactly what these days. So you could have your lawns mowed for how many times?
Probably years worth. Every fortnight almost. Years worth of laundry, maybe dog grooming for a year. Lots of different things.
Yeah, you can have your lawns mowed, you can have house cleaning done, you can have your laundry done, you can have a whole stack of different things done. Dog wash, a lot of things. $2,000 buys you a lot of services.
Now before our New Zealand people go, what about New Zealand? It is going to be happening in New Zealand as well.
This is going to be especially in New Zealand too. We're really going to push it hard in New Zealand. A lot of good people. And a lot of New Zealanders doing it hard right now. The economy is in a problem, and there's a lot of people out there who need help. So we're really delighted to be able to provide more.
So New Zealand Mowing is doing it specifically. So they're offering $1,500 worth of mowing in Wellington, Auckland and Christchurch. And we're then doing a generic gyms group one, which is $500 a week, all over New Zealand as well. So that can be used on anything too. So New Zealand is involved as well. Cool. All right, let's get into the questions. So if you're not familiar with the format, those who always tune in online, leave your question and we'll get it as well. What we're going to do though is we want you to come up to the microphone and ask your question at any time. You don't have to wait for me or you don't have to put your hand up. Come up to ask Jim a question. Now, if you do ask Jim a question,
there we are.
you get a pick of a prize at the end. Everyone gets a prize if you ask me. So say your name and where you're from, which division.
From Wollongong.
Yeah. Good memory.
My name's Shane from Scratch and Dent. We have the territory of Wollongong South. My partner Rihanna over here. Just an icebreaker to kick things off and also to help us get to know Jim in some deep level.
Yeah, we had a bit of a chat at dinner. That's why I know where he's from.
What do you think about when you're sitting on the toilet?
It's a unique one. I haven't heard that one before.
That is a good one. Yeah. Put it down.
Yeah, I'll mark it down.
Love that one. I've often said actually I wouldn't quite put it in those terms, but I say what matters is what you think about in the shower. You know? I have cold showers these days, so they're quite short. Look, actually, I have very good bowel movement, so I tend to go down, sit down, up. So I don't spend a lot of time on the toilet because I have a healthy diet, but the kind of things, I just think about all kinds of stuff. I think a lot about business. I'm always thinking of ideas for business to improve it. I'm thinking about some of the books I'm reading. I've read some fantastic books lately, thinking about all kinds of things. But I don't have much time. But very good question.
Good question, Shane. You've got to mark down. Good man.
But you're quite right too. It's what you think about when you're not working that counts, honestly. Much more than doing the job. If you're thinking about it when you're not working, what can I do better? And that's the sign of a really good operator, someone who just gets their income, keep it on rising all the time.
Who wants to follow Shane? It's as simple as that. You get a
Good
prize
start.
at the end too. Just come up, guys, and ask him anything you like. Well done, Shane.
Hey, my name is Reza. I'm from Central Coast, Sydney. I'm doing a cleaning franchisee. My question is, what do you got in your pocket right now? What do you have in your pockets?
My pockets?
Yeah.
Well, nothing.
There's another original one. Never had that.
Different.
Yeah.
Mobile phone, which is also my wallet with a lot of cards in it. No cash, just in case anyone wants to hold me up. And I have keys. And I have it in a key wallet because if I carry my keys loose, it wears a hole and like it drops out.
Thank you.
Nothing exciting.
Good question. That's it. You got another one?
Yeah, no, good question. Yeah, well said.
That's as easy as that. Come up and ask Jim a question, guys. Let's whip
Nobody's
through it.
ever asked me that before.
No, that's another original one.
I tell you what, these things are magical. If you blow them on things like social media and stuff, they're terrible. But for talking books, for a calendar to remind yourself, to Google look things up, they're just amazing. Love my mobile phone.
So my best friend is a massive Star Wars fan, and he's been asking me this question for a while, rhetorically, but I thought I'd ask you literally. Why did George Lucas recommend Kathleen Kennedy to take over as president of Lucasfilms? Why do you think?
Well, I'm sorry, I have no idea that he was proposing that.
I don't know. He always asks me rhetorically, and I never have an answer for him. So
You're asking somebody without much knowledge. Now, if you ask me who my favourite characters were from Star Wars, like Emperor Palpatine, obviously, as everybody is,
yeah.
I can tell you.
Okay. I have one more Star Wars question. Can I ask that one?
Go for it.
Okay. Sorry.
But something preferably I know something about, because I've
where
seen
did-
them all, but...
Where did the Rebel Alliance hide their base in the original trilogy?
Oh, we're talking about... I don't know. Tatooine? What's that? That's that desert planet, isn't it?
It was that Yavin 4. Or Yavin, is that how you pronounce it? Yavin 4? That was the answer. Okay.
It's a very technical
In
question.
terms of general knowledge, I'm not that brilliant, especially with such things. We had a quiz there, and half the questions about me, and I still didn't win.
It's true.
Hey, how are you, Jim?
Why is he getting a round of applause?
They're very nice people. It's very nice.
I don't
All
know.
right, okay.
We normally don't get the claps. but
Everyone
it's-
Is he popular? Has he done something?
Just after your name and which division you're doing. What's your name?
Hey, Jim. My name's Sadiq. I'm from Melbourne, the north.
Good on you, Sadiq.
I just got a question.
Yep.
Have you ever thought about getting a hair transplant in Turkey or somewhere else?
Oh, how rude is that guy?
No, look. I've got another question as well.
No. I'm as ugly as all hell, and I always have been. I'm not going to improve very much of getting a hair transplant. Now, if you could get a total rejuvenation and I could go back to the age of 25 again, I'd be first in the queue for that.
Okay,
But
and
the
my second,
cosmetic stuff, no.
my second question was,
My wife is gorgeous. She can. It's good enough for both of us.
what do you think about the new Call of Duty game? I heard you're a bit of a gamer.
Oh, I don't know.
You don't play
I think
Call
we're
of
more
Duty?
old school games, James. instead.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, I'm not.
I'm actually more like strategic games. I play a lot of things like Age of Empires and Civilization, that kind
no,
of
fair
stuff
enough,
too, or
yeah.
risk-type games where you. I like conquering people. I like setting up an empire. Just going out and shooting people, it's not much fun, really. I mean, shooting people is fun. We played laser tag with my family on Sunday night. That was great. I just got like going out and shooting people in real life, but not so much in games.
Call of Duty's sort of like that, though. You got to
Oh, yeah,
maybe
it is,
give it a go.
yeah. No, it's different than.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's also physical too. I like the physical games. So we do so much online, but if you do something physical, like running around an arena in laser tag, which is really fun, firing at people and ambushing them and this kind of stuff. I like the physicality of it. It's like the difference between having a online conversation with somebody and then actually meeting with friends face to face. There's really no comparison. The face to face advantage, is there?
But on the, good question. But on the hair transplant stuff, we have had a few people in Jim's family. I'm not going to say who. Have had the hair and the teeth done, and they look absolutely fantastic. So you got your teeth done there? They look great. Really good.
Yeah, a lot of people actually. We've got a lot of people from Turkey and
We do have a lot of Turkish franchisees.
They've all
and
got great
franchisors.
teeth.
They've all got
Brilliant
fantastic
teeth.
After a couple of months, and they come back and they've got good teeth.
You can tell.
G'day Jim, I'm Michael from Christchurch, New Zealand. I'm involved in another company that's not involved with gyms, in a partnership. We decided to diversify and buy a fencing franchise that came up available.
Oh yes, you're the guy that spoke to me about
the solar.
solar. Yeah, that's right. Yes.
So, but my question is that I will be relying on the fencing company for my wages. So yesterday in training they told us that we need to tap into the pay for work guarantee just to get your face out there, make the neighbourhood familiar with yourself and all that kind of stuff. So I spoke to my franchisor about it and said that I want to utilise that. And then he said, I don't qualify for it due to my involvement in another company.
It depends what's in your contract. If you've got a contract with a pay for work guarantee, you should get paid it.
Okay.
And I'm basically the franchisor, so I can tell you will. It's very unusual. You contact me directly about that.
Okay.
Because you're talking, as far as I know, with a franchisor for fencing in that area. It's very, very unusual for a fencing franchisee to claim pay for work guarantee.
Yeah.
And actually went many years before anybody ever wanted to claim. And then we discovered that it was completely useless what was in the contract. So what we now later, if you want to do it, is you can just go and give a quote on anybody's fence.
Yeah.
Just go ask somebody's here, rock down a fence, do you mind if I give you a quote? Give them a quote, get the details, come back to us, we'll give you $60.
Yeah, so I didn't want to tap into it for the money, just for, putting the face out there, but thanks for the answer.
Well, maybe you'll do solar with us too. I mean, we'd love to do solar in New Zealand.
Yeah.
The brand is pretty strong there, not as much as Australia, but it's growing.
Yeah, no, it is indeed.
Well, it's on video and you can tell them to watch it and we'll see what Jim says, but
Yeah.
to give it to Jim as well, especially, and look at the contract. Control F for it, for sure. Good question.
If you have an issue with something like that, where pay for work guarantee is not being paid, even if it's literally the word of the contract, if there's something wrong with it, we fix it. Like fencing as an example. When somebody wanted to claim for fencing, we looked at it and said the whole thing that's there is impractical because we just changed it. We just said on the spot, okay, we'll allow you to do this. Because it's got to be claimable. So if you have an issue, it doesn't matter what's in the contract, you come to me and I'll make sure it happens.
Just surprised by the fact that you say I'm not qualified for it.
No, you'll get it. You'll get it, believe me, you'll get it.
It's on camera now, so
Yeah.
it's in video.
Yeah, good evening, Jim.
Evening.
My name is Sal from Sydney. Just I want to ask you, how old are you?
72.
72?
What do you think Jim looks, though, if I didn't tell you 72 was?
106, I reckon.
56 or 57?
56, 57, that's very nice.
Well, in character and levels of energy and passion and stuff, I am more like 35 or something. I'm very, very physically energetic.
That's good.
I walk. I find things like doors and, there's self-opening doors that when you approach them, I find them maddening because they're so slow. And I'm always dashing around and breaking into a run and just getting mad about things. So I look like I'm 106, but I feel like I'm 25, all right?
God bless.
Yeah, good question. Good question, guys. Just come up and ask Jim. We've got heaps of time. I've got them all here, but just please ask Jim anything you like.
Oh, good.
Yeah, Peter?
There we go. Well, we know each other, of course. I'm the newest project manager here at National, but Peter Muse is my name. I've got a two-part question following on from that, I suppose. Could you perhaps walk us through a little bit about what your succession planning looks like? And if you have a choice of something, the one most important thing that you would like to leave behind as a legacy, what would that be?
Great question.
We're still getting it set up, but the plan basically is, first of all, I want to put into the contract a clause, which will happen sometime fairly soon, that means gyms can never be sold without the written consent of the majority of franchisees. The one thing that scares the pants off me is that it'd be taken over by some company that just says this is the way to make money. And honestly, if you went in with a different attitude, you could double the profit of National very quickly. There's all kinds of ways to do it. And I'd be just disgusted and horrified if some greedy, money-grubbing people got hold of it. So I want to prevent that. What I would plan at the moment to do is set up a board of directors. The company itself is held by a family trust, which has two obligations. First of all, to my research program, which is ongoing. I'm spending several $1 million a year on that. Secondly, to look after my kids, help them with housing and family and stuff. Not a lot of money, not trust fund kids, but just enough to be able to get going in life. And I've got 10 kids. So that's basically what the company is for. What I intend to do is set up a board of directors, which will be, at the present time, be partly my children, who will choose a number of directors, and then there'll be representatives from the Research Foundation and from Jim's group in somewhere. I haven't decided the exact numbers. so that the gym's people will actually have a bit of a say in the running of the company. So that's the plan, is to be settled out. I'm talking about it with our in-house lawyers right now. Hopefully it'll be all done in the next few months. But it's an important question. I'm in very good health. If I go on Google and get my life expectancy, I'll probably live another 20 years, and I'll probably be in pretty good health for most of that. Because, I mean, I am very healthy. I exercise, I run half an hour a day, 22 BMI, keep my weight under control, very active life. Just about everything you could possibly imagine. I should have a long, active life.
Thank you.
And the legacy question, Jim, that was a good, the other part, but the legacy.
My legacy.
The one most important.
One of the most.
I really couldn't. If I had to name, my children are an important part of it. My children are very important to me, my family. My research goals, which has always been where most of my money actually goes, could change the whole of society. And Jim's group, the people in Jim's group. I mean, it's very hard for me to say which of those is most important, because, you know, I spent, 35 years building Jim's group, and a lot of people who depend on us. And my worst nightmare is something bad will happen after I'm gone. I'm hoping that I've got a couple of, not so much children, but my children's builders partners who would be particularly good. And the good thing about both of these young men is that they're both very ethical. So I just got to have that sense of not maximising money, but how you make sure things are done fairly and ethically. It's like a problem like we were talking about before. When somebody's been approached and something's not quite fair, we make a lot of decisions all the time that aren't necessarily financial. Like if we have to pay paperwork guarantee, that'll come out of my pocket, essentially, because I'm the franchisor for fencing. But I want to do that because it's the right thing to do. So you have to be able to make those kinds of decisions. So I want to make sure that whoever comes after me will have that kind of ethical stance.
Yep, no worries. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Having said that, I'm reading a book right now called about getting old and dying and ways of reversing that. And I'm eagerly following it. And if there's somewhere in the next 20 years where they can reverse aging, I'm going to be first in the queue.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Also AI Jim as well. We can load all the video, make it all.
That's his idea.
That's what we can do. All these emails, and you ask the Jim how Jim responds to this, goes through 35 years of emails, and then got the answer. We can do that as well.
Not as good.
Question.
Hello, James. How are you?
Good.
My question is, Jim, as a business person, you have a very busy schedule. So how do you manage your time with your business and family?
Good question. Manage time and business.
I'm not as busy as you think I am, actually. I know I have a reputation for it because I answer emails and take phone calls all hours, evenings, weekends, you know, holidays, whatever. I don't really stop. But within that context, I actually am not that flat out. So, for example, today I drove my son to school and went to pick him up. And if I wasn't doing this, I'd be taking him to school for some other stupid thing they've got on to drive him into some school event. So I spend a lot of time doing things like that. I've always got time. I never. There's the new book that I'm writing now with the help of some editors is going to be entitled "No Other Success," which is short for the idea no other success can compensate for failure in the home. And I believe I've never compromised on that. Always had time for my kids, always with my family. I just don't think any success is worth it. I think a person who becomes fiendishly rich and but neglects their family, don't have good kids, for example, because they haven't got the time for them, or don't have kids at all, there's somehow a wasted life. So, and one of the great things about having a franchise is that you can actually, you can have both. You can have a good income, but you can earn enough. Because I know, you know, in training, I was talking about hourly rates all the time. How you get your $70 an hour hourly rate so you can actually make a really good living, at least equivalent. Usually most of my franchises are doing substantially better than the average Australian wage, but you've still got time for family.
Really good question.
Great question.
We do have a day in the life of Jim on YouTube, which you can follow, and it shows Jim his full day. Don't think much has changed in that day in the life of what you've done.
Yeah, put one down for that one too. I like that question.
Yeah, good stuff there. Cool. Got a question, guys? Feel free to come up and ask Jim. Jump up.
The whole book's going to start with an anecdote about a guy who was a manager in a supermarket. He just didn't see his kids, and then when his son, little boy, 4-year-old boy, asked him one time, "Daddy, I wish you could have breakfast with us." And he drove to work, tears streaming down his face, bought a Jim's Mowing franchise, and ever since then, the last 10 years, he's grown up with that little boy and seen him. And there's nothing could compensate for that if he'd lost it. Because he never could get that time back, no matter how much he made. As it is, I think he made at least as much money mowing lawns as he was as a manager. So he got both.
Hi Jim, how you going? I'm just wondering, when you first started, have you got some really bizarre stories about some really strange customers or strange events that happened that you just won't ever forget when you first started?
Customers. I don't know. Oh, my customers were great, actually. There were some lovely people. They become sort of like your friends. I remember going once to this place, and I was just a student and not much money, and there was this really beautiful house, and really nice house. Just you thought, this guy's obviously loaded, and this truck drives up, Merrigum Property Maintenance, and it was the owner of the house. It was his. You know, wow, he's made a lot of money. It hadn't occurred to me in those days that you could actually make a very good living. And this old lady I used to, I did work for her for years, and this was way back. This is like in the 70s, and she knew Bob Menzies, who was, those who don't know, was Prime Minister in the 50s and 60s, and she knew him before he was Prime Minister.
Okay.
And I asked what he was like, and she said, well, he was very full of himself.
Yeah.
Very ambitious.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
Yeah, they're great people too. I've met a lot of really interesting people.
Yeah.
But most of my customers have been great.
Yeah.
Some of them you get your turds who don't pay you, but not a lot. Most customers are pretty decent.
Nothing unusual, bizarre? For your eyes only?
Maybe in Jim's book, the maybe customer friend, might be some stories in there. Good question, thanks for that one as well. If you want to go to question, guys, jump up and ask. I've got a couple online on the stream, Jim, I just want to point out. So Hadar's gone. One of the cleaning franchisees in our training will be their 1,000th cleaning franchisee, and they're nearly at 1,500 for the Jim's cleaning group, which is great.
Wow.
So it's 1,000 franchisees.
Yeah, Hadar's wanted to take down mowing. He's wanted that for years. Whenever he gets, mowing's about 2,200, so he's got a way to go.
Yeah, a bit to go.
He's going to make it. They're going to have a huge party because cleaning is that. Mowing's still growing actually. We're doing well, but cleaning is growing faster. So
absolutely. Cool. Go for it.
Quick question. I just wanted to know what your favourite Star Wars movie was.
I like the prequels actually.
Yeah?
Yeah, I really do. I like the ones where Anakin turns to the dark side of the Force. That has a great appeal to me, and how a good man can become bad for good reasons, for love of his mother, love of his wife. Interesting. And also, Palpatine's just a fascinating character. How does the guy who starts off as a senator in some backward planet become ruler of the galaxy? I mean, that's kind of interesting. Yeah.
Mine's Solo.
Prequels. What's that?
Mine's Solo.
You like Han Solo, do you?
Yeah.
Solo. You like that series?
Yeah.
Yeah. I tell you what, after the first 5, I never got into it so much. I like the prequels, New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. Seen most of everything else, but never dug me in the same way. I just think the story arc that George Lucas did was brilliant.
Yeah, same. Thank you.
I remember the first time watching Star Wars, it was absolutely magical. It's like one of those things you never see again because you've never seen it. Like the ground effect vehicle, the thing that just bounces like that. And then there was the one with all these, they were fighting in outer space right at the beginning, when there's all these great rumbling sounds and the flashing and stuff. That was magic, which actually doesn't make any sense because it was in space, you couldn't hear it. But all the same, it was exciting. Those of you who were old enough to remember seeing it, it's like seeing Jurassic Park for the first time, because I was crazy about dinosaurs as a kid. I had little plastic dinosaurs from when I was, that high. I was always on about dinosaurs. To actually see real-life dinosaurs, I'll never forget that. Amazing.
It was pretty legit, wasn't it? The old Jurassic Park was quite advanced back in the day. We got a bootleg tape from Saudi Arabia of all places. I remember hiding under the couch as a 3-year-old thinking the T-Rex is quite real, so it was very, very well done back in the day. If you've got a question, guys, feel free to come up and ask Jim. I've got them all here, but we want to get you on camera. Anyone who asks Jim a question.
Some people here told me they'll have some questions. I know, I was speaking to you before.
Yeah, you can ask a second question. Just keep it going.
Yeah, keep on going, keep on going.
Hey Jim, I'm Cam from Armidale, New South Wales. My question is, are there any mainstream conspiracy theories that you personally believe in?
Well, if believed in, there wouldn't be conspiracy theories, would there? That's usually for cults. Well, I don't know. I believe that Daniel Andrews is in league with the powers that be in this country to screw the common man. If you believe if that's a conspiracy theory, I just say it's common sense, actually, but that's what you regard it as. I do think that there's supposed to be cabals of the rich and powerful and famous, but I reckon if you look at politics, you see so much of what goes on in society is governed by the interests of the elites. Like you've got the Labor Party, which is obviously ruled by the woke left and the inner city professionals and the trade union bosses and stuff. And I wouldn't even say the trade unions themselves. I'd say they're leaders who have very different motivations. But then you look at the Liberal Party and there's so much entrained to big business with their donations and things. I don't know. I see so many things that are so obviously you could change things for the better if you just looked at what is in the interest of the average person. So in that sense, I think there's a conspiracy, but it's just normal society. The rich and the powerful, manage things to suit themselves.
A quick follow-up question. I recently saw your video that showed Jim's group is thinking about entering the political sphere. Just want to know how close to the truth were the things that you said in that video?
Oh, obviously I can't become premier because that's not politically possible. But what I talked about in terms of the housing crisis is 100% passion for mine. It's just appalling the way that my daughter, who's 22 years old, and a partner, they want to rent a place in Ringwood, okay? There's massive, every place they go to, there's like 50 applicants going for it. I made a deal to this landlord, agent, whatever. I said, I will pay a year's in advance rent. And they still didn't take it. Now, how can you do better than that? They're so unfair and so wrong. Housing is unaffordable. How renting is really hard to find. You can't find rental. It's shocking that we're bringing massive immigrants into the country, which actually, part of Jim's group, I think is fantastic because we get so many good franchisees, but we're not building houses for them. So we need to build more. We need to relax the zoning laws. The one thing, the response to the whole thing, it was April Fool's gag, of course, but the response was so amazing, like 96% positive. We've never had that kind of reaction. Most of what I say is pretty controversial. It's no secret that a lot of people don't like me for what I think about Daniel Andrews and the lockdowns and stuff. 2 of my daughters wouldn't speak to me for months after that whole episode, really. But when it comes to housing, 96% in favour. I think there's a general feeling this has gone far enough. Housing is too expensive. Young people can't afford to buy. People can't afford to rent. There's something wrong. We need drastic changes to the zoning laws, like they've done in Auckland, and they did about 5 years ago, and it's already making things more affordable. We need to be able to build denser cities, livable cities, where people can actually have the houses they want, the units they want, live close to work, be able to afford it, have rents that don't, and mortgages that don't take up most of your income. That's badly needed. So in actual fact, we have been discussing the possibility, and maybe I should stand for the upper house in the next state election, which I believe is 2026, and see if I can get a pressure group together, not necessarily left versus right, but to get together and say, okay, if you want us to cooperate with you in government, let's do something to make housing affordable, to make renting affordable.
Cool. Thanks, Jim.
Yeah. It was taken quite seriously. It was on the 7 News. That Instagram video we did still gets comments today saying Jim for PM. Hopefully he does it. So it's still going.
But it's state politics, actually, because the state is where you get zoning. So I'm not interested in federal politics. I'm interested in state politics.
But it's still going. Every day we get a comment on it still, that video, 2.5 months ago. So it's still going around as well. If you've got a question, guys, feel free to come up and ask Jim. Go for another one.
Who reckons housing is too expensive? Put up your hand. Yeah.
Yep.
I would say so too. For those who can't, the camera can't see, that's the whole room.
Yeah, definitely. Jim, the human condition is built heavily upon the dichotomy between humans and nature. And there's a theory of dark ecology out there at the moment. And given that, I always find that answers are found a lot when you spend time alone in nature. Have you got any insights or lessons that you've learned from raising chickens?
Well, I've got a farm which is about half an hour that way, which I'll have to go out at the weekend, and I get very muddy, and I dig potatoes and grow a lot of my own food when I can, and yes, chickens too, which is great. And they're running around in a very nice enclosure where you can't even see them. They come rushing to get scraps and stuff, but otherwise you can't see them, so it's wonderful. I love to spend time with nature. There's a thing called biophilia, that we've got an innate love of nature. If you're talking about happiness, and I'm actually working on the book right now called the Health and Happiness Handbook. And some of the principles, you look at the science of the thing is becoming happy. People think it's got to do with having more and more money to buy more and more stuff. It's very misleading, actually. Friendships matter, relationships matter a lot, but also exercise matters a lot. Time spent outdoors matter a lot, time spent in contact with nature. There's a whole stack of things that build happiness. And I think nature is one of the greatest ones. Yeah, chickens are great. They really are.
One more question. What's your favourite car?
Car?
Scratch and dent. I've got to ask a question.
Well, I've got a Volvo, which is... it's my first ever electric car, a new car I ever bought, which was 18 months ago, because I wanted all electric. Because we've got solar panels, so I can power the car from solar panels instead of powering it from coal, which I really feel good about. And the Volvo's quite a nice car, and they've got pretty good safe reputation. Good driving assist, so it's safe. I've got my wife and my kid in the car, so yeah.
Cool. Good man.
Question. Go for it. Come up and ask.
But I tell you something, I never get anything fixed. I'm not much good for you guys.
Client for scratch and dent, no.
I had a Kingswood for years, and I never had anything fixed. I never used to wash it either. And I was at the car park once, and somebody backed into me, and he said, "I'm so sorry." I said, "Look at the car. Don't worry about it."
Go for it. Ask the question.
Hi, Jim. Thank you so much for having me here, first of all. And my name is Nduker. I'm from Newcastle. I have two questions today.
Okay.
So the first question is, what is your favorite sport? And the second question...
My favourite spot in the world?
Sport, is it?
Yeah,
sport?
Yeah, sport.
Oh, sport. Yeah, okay, all right. I like laser tag, actually. I reckon going into an arena and shooting your friends is really got to be the key best things you can ever do with your time. We did it on Sunday. It was fantastic fun. My wife actually won. There were 7 of us. She actually won because she figured out you've got to shoot those little lights up there.
Okay.
I wish I could have an arena here. If I could, I would. I've even thought about it. Set up an arena on site. Yeah, you would too. Takes a bit of space. I'd love to have a laser tag. If we ever move to a larger premises, because Jim's got too successful, definitely that would be in the mix. And we all go out playing every lunchtime. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. My second question is, how old are you when you start your first business, and what is your budget that time?
When I started my first business, I was 8.
How?
Because I did gardening for a neighbour. That's my own business. I wasn't employed by somebody. I was just doing work. So I used to do gardening for a neighbour, and then there was another neighbour I used to mow the lawns for. That was my own business. I was 8 years old.
So how much money do you have in your account that time when you start your first business?
Well, he used to pay me 2 shillings, which is 20 cents. But this is, don't forget, this is 1960, thank you. And 2 shillings in those days would buy you a nice block of Cadbury chocolate, which I otherwise couldn't really afford. So that was my beginning of my career. And if somebody had told me that one day I'd make a living out of this thing, I would have said, impossible. But I've actually mowed lawns or done gardening for, apart from about 3 years in high school when you moved cities, I've actually done it ever since, basically.
Just another question. Have you ever been employed by someone?
Yep. The last time I was employed by anybody, I was 18 years old, and I went to work in a guest house in Marysville, where I was a drink waiter and a barman, and I can tell you I was terrible at it. I wouldn't have employed me. I don't have much people skills. I know I got people upset. So that was the last time, and I don't miss it. Ever since then, I've been self-employed.
Very good question.
I don't think anybody employ me. I'm really, really difficult. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a person that does things my own way. I wouldn't make a good employee.
I've got one online real quickly, Jim, which should be relevant to everyone here from YouTube. Wayne's has gone, what happens if you build a business through gyms but then decide to go independent? Are you able to take your customers, or do they have to go back to the gym's franchise?
No, you can keep them. You just pay $5,000 to waive Australian trade, and quite frankly, we don't always enforce it anyway. We can, sometimes we do. So $5,000, that's all.
There you go. Got a question, Guy? Feel free to come up and ask Jim. We've got plenty of time here as well for him.
I know some don't allow that, but to my mind, if a person really doesn't see the value of their fees, they might as well go independent, honestly. What's striking is that most people, even those who don't take work for years, still stay with us. Going independent is fairly uncommon. It does happen though.
We don't talk about that because that's a good thing. You got 25 and 20-year franchisees who have that reduced, that retirement fee and stuff like that. So maybe mention that to people.
Well, when people get to 10 years, or when they get to which was the old, to get to the end of their franchise contract, they could just walk away. There's nothing to stop them, but they almost never do, because they like the brand. They like often it's community. It's taking pride in who you are. You're being part of an organisation. It's the fact that you can charge more. We've had people go independent. One of the things we actually do when people do go independent is we ring them. We try to ring them a few months later to see how they're going. And very frequently they want to come back. We had one guy who actually went, because he didn't get on with his franchisor, he went to a rival franchise organisation. He hated it. I won't say who they were. And he said, "Can I come back?" So he said, "Sure, come back."
There we go.
Jim, how are you?
Good.
Thank you for the conversation earlier during the dinner time.
Yeah.
Now, my question is, you are indicating something about the politics side of it. I have been connected to the training industry for some time, and what I can see is increasingly there is, because I have been connected with that since 2007, I can see a lot of administrative expenses which is related to audits with the training industry. Since you employ so many people who are connected to all vocational training related, so are you going to look into something which is going to give real employment for future and also reduce those administrative cost?
Well, by a strange coincidence, the guy sitting down there is Peter, who's got a background in training, who's just starting this week. He's doing franchisee training as an intro, and that's his area. And we have a registered training organisation, and we intend to beef that up, to look at skills like trees and fencing and handyman and those kinds of areas where we can help people to become skilled. And there's a lot of need for that sort of thing. It's just amazing that you'd have somebody who studies for 3 years to do a law degree, and the vast majority of them do not become lawyers because there's not enough demand for them. We can train a person to build fences in 8 weeks, and they make more money than most lawyers do.
Yep.
So there's a huge need for vocational training, and we intend to be at the part of it. And Peter's going to be there.
I'll just give you an example. I've been hugely connected to the hospitality training curriculum. Since 2007, I think probably I would have seen the inclusion of just one module, first aid, getting into the curriculum and been taken off. Now, every time that been taken in and taken off, it's a huge administrative process. If you contemplate the number of registered training organization who is delivering that particular hospitality qualification leading from Cert 3 to the diploma level, it cost just that registered training organization something close to $10,000 to $12,000, each and every single registered training organization. And then to audit that, the government itself spends millions. Why do we have to do that? I'm just this is something because I have been wholeheartedly connected, and you will probably know.
To Peter about that, but I don't know that the whole system is that awful, really. I mean, it's good to have recognised qualifications. I think they do it too much. I think there's certain things they shouldn't use it for.
A lot of bureaucratic process.
Yeah.
A lot of bureaucratic process.
I don't know. Peter could respond to that.
Look, I think that's actually part of exactly what we're looking at. As we move forward, is to review all of that and understand what the impacts going forward for that means. So, and I'm happy to talk more with you as we go forward to take on board your experience and what you've taken on board to bring that into the actual mix. So, but that is the reason why I've started, is to do exactly that, is to look into these things and see what is viable as we move forward. And I've got to feed that back and give that information to Jim for him to make those decisions. So,
just
yeah.
like, if I may say, like, since you are connected to the training side of it, let's say, like, the module, if I say, with, again, I will go back to the hospitality, like the seafood, okay? They keep on changing, like, the criterias. Well, fish and chip, what it was sold 20 years back, is still the same fish and chip.
I think the point is, though, we've simply got to work with whatever the government does and do the best we can. But we have unique advantages in terms of doing training, because everybody who trains in gyms has actually done the job and been in business. So it's everything we do is extremely practical. Like the people you've been hearing about in training. These are people who've done this. They know what they're talking about in practical life, and we're seriously rated by our attendees for how good we are. And if we do the same thing, we should be able to be a very, very good RTO. With the benefit that when you come out of an RTO, if you've done like a fencing course and you've passed and you've done well, we're quite likely to say, okay, here's 6 people who want workers, because we've got the direct connections, or here's a free or discounted franchise. We can do all kinds of things that no TAFE can do. So it's exciting stuff. That, as you say, there's bureaucratic problems, but we're not here to change the government. We're just here to work within it. But we can do a lot more.
We'll talk some more
That's good.
as we go forward.
Thanks for the question.
Good of you to come up. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Come up and ask your question.
Hello. I was just a question about, in 2017 you founded the Institute of Social Neuroscience, and you're using CRISPR and epigenetic technology. Have you made any advances with that, or have you left it and you're planning to plunge back into it?
Institute of Social Neuroscience is basically a tertiary institute set up to teach psychology at honours and master's level.
Okay.
So the idea was to be used as a basis for my research team. Since then, I've found that didn't work very well. I've got my own team, which is based on Latrobe University with Professor Terry Johns in charge. We've got about 15 people working on it at the moment. Yeah, we're doing some really interesting stuff. We're looking at mostly on rats. We're looking at the effects of mild food restriction or intermittent food restriction, some of which are very positive actually, and then we're looking at the epigenetic changes as well as the hormonal changes, things like testosterone. And the idea, what we're trying to do is to develop methods and systems which will reverse engineer that. So for example, we're using cellular cultures we test 100,000 different drugs to look for the epigenetic signatures we're after. And when we've got one of those, then we can test on animals and see if it's got potential for things like treating drug addiction and so forth. So it's very exciting and it's progressing very fast.
And what about the CRISPR side of it? Do you want to explain what that is and how that works?
Well, I was talking to Terry just recently, my research head, and I've always wanted to use CRISPR because if you could target, those who don't know, epigenetics is a system for turning on or off the activity of genes. And it's the effect of environment, either your own experience or that of your parents or grandparents, that affects the way that genes function. It has a dramatic effect on character, in my view. So if you understood things that were wrong, why people are addicted to drugs as an example, there's a problem with their epigenetic settings. If we could actually go and target that precisely, we know exactly what's wrong, and we change this, that should be a really powerful way of treating these kinds of problems and a lot of other kinds of mental illnesses and so forth too. So in the past, CRISPR is a system it's a guide, because what you've got to do is you've got to go to the right section of DNA and you make the precise changes. The problem is, at the moment, the technology is likely to be off target. So you make a change over here to do what you want, and something will happen over there. But the targeting is getting so much better that Terry reckons within a year, we'll be able to precisely target the epigenome. And by that time, we'll know precisely what to change. So I wouldn't be surprised if in the next couple of years, there's some very major breakthroughs which will have a massive impact on things like mental health.
Also on a related topic, can you give us an impression of Monty Burns?
Excellent. Very good question. I like the research.
By the way, this is a summary. It's not up to date, but this is one latest version of the book.
Biohistory.org.
Biohistory.
And you can download the PDF, and there's also some really good YouTube videos about it which explain it as well. So if you want to understand it, it's a really good one too. That's a really good question. I love the research on it as well.
Put that one in.
I've already flagged it. It's all good as well. If you've got a question, guys, feel free. We've got some time here as well. All right, I've got one here that I want to get onto online. David's gone, Jim, if you would consider going to Mars if you were 50 years younger.
Well, not in my current situation, because I've got so many things to do here on Earth. But when I was younger, I definitely would have done it. I was mad science fiction fan, and when I was 20, I would have signed up for the first interstellar spacecraft for sure. I really would have. To me, I don't like travelling for tourism very much, but to travel to colonise to new planets, new lands is incredibly exciting. I love that idea.
Good question from David online.
Yeah, it's a great question.
Got one written down here from Lewis Rogers. Is Lewis here from Jim's Mowing? Yeah, do you remember your question, or do you want me to read it out for you? I'll read it out for you. All right, cool. He says, you have been described as a follower of Christianity, but also following the views of evolution. So how hard is it to sit with these differing views and not let it cause internal conflict? We've got a few religious questions on here, so that's a good one.
Yeah, that's okay. I don't regard Genesis as being a scientific study in any sense, nor would it have been meant to be. In fact, if you look at Genesis chapters 1 and 2, you find two contradictory accounts put side by side. And you can see it in the way that they put the animals first or man came first. They're contradictory. So what you've got to understand is when you look at what somebody's written, you have to understand what the author was trying to say. And what the author of Genesis was trying to say is that God made it. Now, the actual account of how that was written isn't the important point. It's a theological point. It's God is all-powerful, God is the creator. So in that sense, I believe the Bible is the word of God. I just think you have to understand what it means. It is God's handbook. And it's the guide to a better life, in my view. And I have enormous respect for people of different faiths too, of Islam and of Hinduism and Sikhism and others too. I'm not decrying that, but I personally am a Christian. And the way I look at the Bible is this. If you had a problem with your washing machine, it was broken down. Now, I'm not mechanical, so I wouldn't even try and fix it, but let's say that you were. The one thing you wouldn't do is go out to the garage, get the manual for Toyota and try and fix it, because it wouldn't work, would you? Because it's not the maker's manual. If you wanted to fix your washing machine, you go and find the manual from the maker of the washing machine, because that knows how to fix the problems with it. Well, to me, God is the creator, God is the maker. So God's word is the way to understand how we work most effectively. And the interesting thing is when you have a look at the literature on happiness in life, how much of what comes out from scientific studies backs up exactly what the Bible says about community, about altruism, that we are happier if we live that kind of life than if we just go for material possessions. And when Jesus said things like it's harder for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven than the camel to go through the eye of a needle, that's a very profound statement, and I believe in it, I live by it. You cannot be consumed by your wealth. It doesn't bring happiness, it doesn't bring a good life.
Very good question there. If you've got a question, guys,
great
feel free.
question. Put that one down.
I've marked them all down, don't worry, it's all marked. But I've got a really good one here as well as a follow-up. Just want to put this one a bit more in a concise package. So this is from Dariush from Jim's Dog Wash, which I thought was a really good question. What's happiness then? So what is happiness? So you've mentioned a little bit before, you're working on a book about it. What is happiness?
Happiness is a whole stack of different things. Happiness is community, it's relationship, it's connection. One of the things we didn't understand about Jim's in the beginning was the importance of community, the value of meetings. And so it applies to that, it applies to family, having a business where you have people that you connect with, but you also have time for your family, for your kids, for your partner. That is crucially important. That's almost the number one thing, and everything else fits together. On top of that, exercise, very, very good. Exercise is great for you. Good diet, good food, not garbage, not the junk food we have too much of, the super processed food, but good quality food. If you eat well, you feel better, you feel happier. Time spent outdoors, time spent in contact with nature. Living a life which has meaning, which has purpose. Living a life that has a sense for doing other people, helping other people. People actually feel happier when they do something for somebody else than when something is done for them. This is scientific studies. I'm not talking about ideology, I'm talking about science. When they study these things, there's a way to live better. There are simple principles, and that's why Christianity works, because it's a system which actually brings a lot of things together. It says, don't be gluttonous, don't be lazy, look after your fellow man, look after your children, look after your family. All these are great principles for living a happy life. interesting thing is that, and this endless pursuit of wealth and material possessions in particular is terrible. And they found that's one thing. People think, if I just get more money and have a bigger house and a more expensive car, more expensive clothes, fancier holiday, whatever, I'll be happy. Well, it doesn't work that way. People who win the lottery after 12 months, they come out to much the same space as they were in before. But things like commuting along, that makes a difference. Debt makes a difference. There's a whole lot of principles. There's a scientific study that shows you how to be happy, and it's astonishingly how often that actually coincides with the principles of faith.
This will be in all the new, this other book you're writing as well, won't it? This one as well.
This is it. It's going to be called something like Health and Happiness Handbook. We're working on it. We're fairly far advanced. Hope it'll come out probably in early next year, probably.
It's going to be a good one to get. If you've got any questions, guys, feel free to come up. We've got a little bit more time. I've got one here which I think is a really good one from Rebecca August from Jim's Mowing. Basically says, Jim's contingency plan, if another lockdown or another COVID happens, what would you do? What would be the contingency plan this time?
Look, I would like to think there's a reason that I continue to make a fuss about this, and it's not just because I'm angry about what happened. I am upset about what happened 4 years ago. It's because if the same thing happens again, we've got to handle it better. And one of the things I make a big fuss about ongoing is to remind people that Daniel Andrews thought that he was opinion-proof, that the opinion of 100,000 plus Victorian small business owners didn't matter. I think we showed him that it did matter, and that in the end we won the battle. Even my daughters, who wouldn't speak to me for months, came back later and said, hey, you were right. And they are pretty lefty, but they recognised that it was not necessarily what they did. So next time, I believe we'll do a better job. And I think there will be a next time. I don't think it's the last epidemic. I think infectious disease is a big problem. There is a problem because of, I don't know where you think that COVID came from. People originally said it was from a Wild Animals Direct. I believe that's garbage. I think the chance of something arriving within a short car distance of the Wuhan Virology Institute, which is the foremost research institution in China to deal with these kinds of viruses, weaponizing them, and it just happened to be starting just a short distance from there. And it's known that the Wuhan Institute has very poor safety procedures. That's where it came from. I think it's absolutely certain that's where it came from. And more and more research has been done on this, and it's going to escape again, or it's going to be released deliberately. So it's not the last time we're going to have a viral infection. I just think we've got to learn from it. I think the Swedes did it better. I honestly do. Now, I didn't object to things like not being able to go to church. I didn't like it. I saw the reason for it. But in effect, what they did in Sweden is they said, be sensible people. Don't have rigid law. Don't have policemen locking people down and arresting them for this kind of thing. And you know what? One country in the world that had the fewest excess deaths during COVID was, guess what? Sweden. Because the problem is when you lock people down, maybe they don't get COVID, but maybe they don't look at cancer, they don't get heart problems looked at. But a lot of other things went wrong, mental health issues, all kinds of problems. We had a young kid who was a young guy working in our IT department, Anthony, who committed suicide. That wouldn't have happened if it hadn't been for that COVID lockdown. I know people who suffered. I know people personally who lost their families, their houses because of that wretched lockdown. I would hope and expect next time that the government will do it much, much better. And if they don't, I will be screaming to high heaven, I tell you what.
Well, there was one outcome that actually came. Remember the dog wash situation? Because we obviously had you did the film of the story at our house, and they changed that around the next time, didn't they? Do you want maybe get that's a good example of actually, because of you were so vocal, I reckon that was what changed the dog grooming one.
Yeah. Politics is about power. And what a lot of people said to me, one of the things I most appreciated about that whole thing was people who were independent contractors. Now, I didn't set out to look after them. I set out for my people, for my tribe, for my franchisees. Because they're the ones I speak to and identify with and I talk to every day, and I was hearing from this. But in the process of doing that, I actually stood up for the independent contractors too. And many of them since then have thanked me for that stance because nobody had ever spoken up for them in the past. But now there's a voice.
Because it was a pretty big at the start, I remember, because we did the press conference at the front of my old share house there, and when that went on 7 News, that went berserk. Yeah. And I remember you rang me up at like 11 o'clock at night, and if you were ringing me up at 11 o'clock and I'm going, geez, what have I done here? And then we looked at the ratios and stuff on the comments, because obviously a lot of negative comments, but the actual ratio on the engagement was about 50-50. And then obviously we couldn't walk it back. And then we kept going and going and going, and then slowly over time you had that sort of thing happen. You had the council workers obviously messaging all the time, and all these sorts of
the
things.
The council workers actually contacted me, some of them, and said, we agree with you. We think it's stupid, the fact that we can work and your guys can't. They saw how dumb it was. These people aren't intellectual giants. They're workers. They can see something. Why can't the Premier see that? Why can't the powers that be that we're supposed to elect to know what to do? I don't think they'll do it again that bad. I really don't think. I think what he did was so obviously wrong.
Got one here from Jim Scratch and Dent. Do you remember your question at all about expanding to other countries, Scratch and Dent? No, uniforms, sorry, uniforms. You wrote a question about Jim's expanding into other countries?
I did, yeah, I just got an ask.
All right, just come up and ask it. Get your branding on there, Jim's uniforms. Bit of a lesser known division, but hopefully not anymore.
It's growing fast.
Yeah, it's growing fast. First one off the first couple of the week. So, Jim, are you going to grow into other domestic markets? You're in 3 or 4 now, or are you just going to concentrate more on just growing the divisions within the markets you're in?
You mean other countries?
Yes.
Look, to be honest, when we go to other countries, it's normally because somebody comes to us and says, I want to do it. And that's most likely what's going to happen. It's actually a lot easier to start a new division in Australia or New Zealand because we're so well known already. To start even mowing or dog wash over in another country would be difficult. But who knows? Maybe somebody in this room or this training course this week will actually come down the track and look at them. So, great customer service rate, great earnings. I'd like to launch in California. Great, go for it. Most divisions don't start because we start them. I don't know if you know that. Most divisions start because somebody comes to us. Sometimes it could be an outsider. You get someone like Jason Japp, who started Scratch and Dent, who used to be a franchisee in Mowing, was a franchisor, went out, got experience with the test and tag industry, now come back to launch the division. So that's the kind of thing that tends to happen. So maybe, who knows? Maybe you.
Maybe. I've got another question that sort of pertains to the dialogue around Dan Andrews and the cost of property. We all agree it's pretty expensive. I'm just wondering, do you think that social mobility's more or less of a possibility these days than, say, us Gen Xers? I'm in my 50s now. Sort of back in the day, you could sort of work at a job and work hard, and then you can go and buy a house and all that sort of stuff. I think it's still possible, but it just has to be done in a different way, different strategies. Like, what are your thoughts around that?
It's getting harder. One of the things that we do in gyms is that we don't tend to recruit graduates. We tend to recruit from either people who come in a base level job, like Joel, or the call centre, like the old system of doing it, rather than employing people who are master's degree. But that's less and less common. Most big companies, you have to have like a master's to get in the front door to even get a look at a job, which I think is unfortunate. It is harder to have social mobility unless you're particularly good at studying, which not everybody's bad. But I have to say, one area where social mobility is really, really possible and easy is right here in gyms. We reckon we produce more millionaires and multimillionaires than any other company in this country, because you can start with a small investment, could be $25,000, $30,000, and you can build anything. And people don't realise this, but most of the rich people in gyms are not actually franchisors, they're actually franchisees. There's people turning over millions of dollars a year with multiple employees. Yeah. And there's nobody going to tell you as a franchisee, hey, you can't make more than a certain amount of money. No, you decide that.
As someone who's been down a teaching degree in the last few years, it's good that there's a system that anybody can sort of come into and work.
We've had a few teachers started to do really well with us actually because of the systems and you know what they're really good at? We've got a guy called Adam, he did 4 months in the field, then got off the tools and has like 5 employees, and his teaching background for the training has been really, really good. That's normally not what happens, but a lot of teachers make really good franchisees, especially with recruiting staff and being able to train them and build them up.
There's a foolish prejudice against working with your hands. There really is. There's the idea that somehow sitting in front of a computer doing a desk job is somehow superior. It isn't. It's not only not better in terms of income, because our people make well above the average Australian income, by and large, without any sort of tertiary degree being required, but also a lot of studies show that the happiest people tend to be those in jobs where they're working outside and they've got flexible hours. Both those things, and minimum commuting. So it's a good... Trades is an area that's grossly overlooked. I think we should be encouraging young people, especially kids who aren't particularly academic, but who could be absolutely brilliant. You have someone like Dan Carl, you're going to hear from him tomorrow. I think you've heard
Dan tomorrow, yeah.
Dan tomorrow. This is a kid who dropped out of school at the age of 15 or whatever. He was a high school dropout, failure, went to work at McDonald's, bought a lawn mowing franchise. He's multi-millionaire now, okay, and he's in his early 30s. But he was useless at school. In normal thing, people would say, oh, that guy's rubbish, he's worth nothing. But in his own business, he proves to be a genius.
We've got a lot of ex-police officers now finishing as well. Like a pool care guy I interviewed last week was a detective for 11 years, and he was just saying the mental stress, and after a year, he's doing pool care, so it's about the pools, he's just so much happier and just mentally, when we do the interviews with franchisees, obviously money and working for yourself is one thing, but the third thing that generally comes up most of the time now is the mental health aspect of it now, which is really important for people. So.
You know what they find the happiest people are in terms of professions? People like construction workers and gardeners.
Gardeners and florists.
Yeah. Physical workers outside.
Yeah.
And you know where lawyers come? Right down the bottom.
That's what I did, law degree, yeah. Unhappy. Good question.
Good question.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for the questions tonight, guys. What we'll do is, Jim, I wrote down a few here that were your favourites. So we normally pick 3 to get first pick of the prizes, but anyone who asks a question, come see me at the end and you can get all the prizes here. The only thing that's offhand is the laptop behind here, and there's pretty much everything else up for grabs there too. So Jim, which question did you like? I wrote a few down. Good luck with reading my handwriting.
I told you I should
Yeah, I know,
write
you're
it
not
down.
gonna write down. The first one was about the toilet, because you never had that one before.
I like that one at the toilet. That was a good
first one.
Nobody's
Toilet.
ever asked it. Who said that?
Original one up the front here. Sean? Is it Sean? Shane. So
Shane.
Shane. All right, pick whatever you like, Shane. Grab
Can't
whatever you
be
like.
surprised.
Whichever one you want. That one. Okay, you've gone for that. What are the next one?
Christianity and evolution?
Yes, that was from this gentleman here in the grey shirt, grey jumper. There's a great question there. You can take anything you like as well. What was the last one? There was one about the young man who did a bit of research about your CRISPR.
Yeah, that's good.
I thought that was a good
great
one. Was
too.
that
I
Sean?
like that.
Sean? Yep, come up and grab whatever you want, Sean. And everyone else who asked the question with Jim, you come see me at the end and you can take whatever. So unless he takes Monopoly, there's Monopoly available. There's beers available and there's shirts here as well. I also recommend, you want the bear, okay? Yeah. All right, no worries, all good. All good. So you still got this here left here, so you got beers there, you got that if you ask the question as well. We do this every 3 weeks. It's always as a podcast and stuff like that. The gentleman who asked for the pay for work guarantee thing, you might want to show the franchisor. This is what Jim said. Up to you as well. But thank you very much for your attention tonight. If you do want to get a photo with Jim, now's a fantastic time because it's a massive rush on Wednesday. Come hand me your phone. I'll take one here if the light is on. But thank you much for your attention and good luck with the rest of your training experience.